Time is life. If you waste your time, you waste your life. If you master your time, you master your life. What is time? Time is what we don't have much of when we're running for a plane. It's what we frantically try to save so we can waste it. It's being born and dying. We measure time in hours, days, months, and years. We live in a world of clocks.
Good morning. The time is 6:15 a.m.
The clock tells us when to get up, when to go to work, when to stop work, when to eat, when to go to bed. We tell time by cuckoos, by calendars, by candles, by celebrating in funny hats. We remember time with albums, with old ticket stubs, with antiques, with college colors, with classic cars, with ceremonies. Some people kill time. Some call time. Some serve time. Some beat time. Some try to turn back time. And all too often in this frantic world we live in, time is something we never have enough of. Something we must escape from time to time. Escape and think about in whatever quiet limbo we can find in our busy worlds. Because most of all, time is life. It's irreversible and irreplaceable. To waste your time is to waste your life. There's no such thing as a lack of time. However we spend it, it goes on at the same pace. We each have 168 hours to live per week. No more, no less. The difference between us, whether we control our life or it controls us. Whether we control our job or it controls us. The differences lie in the effective use of those 168 hours, week in, week out. And just as our lives have time limits, so does this film. We've got 26 minutes left to browse through this book together. Why? To get you to buy a few simple but powerful ideas that will help you get control of your time and your life. The author of this book and our ideas, Alan Lakeins, an internationally recognized specialist in time management. Lakeins, a Harvard MBA, is no time and motion man. He writes about effective use of time, not efficient use of time. As a consultant and teacher, he's worked with worldwide clients such as AT&T, IBM, Xerox, and governments at all levels. And now as we browse through his book together, Lakeins is going to work with you. And who should be more concerned with the time of your life than you?
Of course I'm concerned about the time in my life, but I can't do anything about it. My boss, my staff, my family, they control my time. I don't.
There's a new crisis every 10 minutes. I can't possibly control my time.
I'm always a day behind. There's just too much to do and not enough time to do it in.
Okay, I'll do it. If I could just do this, you'd better believe my time problems would be solved too.
I plan my day right down to the last minute. Then someone keeps me waiting a half an hour.
Who's got time to think about time? I've got too much to think about already.
I really want to be an artist. That's how I want to spend my time. And after 8 hours of this, who can paint?
I'm 46 years old. What the devil's happened to my life? I spend it shaving, commuting, going to meetings, working overtime. Then I start all over again.
There's no doubt about it. Life is full of time robbers. And life is full of time conflicts. Your business gets in the way of your pleasure. Your manager has one idea of how you should spend your time, and you have another. What we're going to attempt to do is pull a few good ideas out of this book that will help you resolve these conflicts, help you start thinking about the time of your life. Not just in minutes and hours, but in what you want out of life, what you want out of your job. Idea number 1. List your goals and set priorities. Now, you all know the value of this, and you've all probably done it, but when? Last month? Last year? You change. Your world changes. Your goals change. You need to do this constantly to be sure you're spending your time on things that are important to you. So tonight, or right after you see this film, start by answering these 2 questions. What are my long-term goals? What are my goals for the next 6 months? Now, we suggest you answer these questions twice. Make a lifetime goal list. What do I really want out of life? And then make a work goals list. What do I really want out of my job? In this film, we'll be talking mostly about your time problems as they relate to your work. But the ideas that solve job time problems also solve your problems away from work. When you make your list, let your imagination run rampant. Stay loose, write fast, be intuitive. Go for quantity, not quality. Now, your lists are written on paper, remember, not carved in marble. And you're not stuck with doing what you write down. You decide what you do and what you don't do. The next step is as simple as ABC. You have to pick the priorities. Here's where the quality comes in. A is for items of high value to you. Sell 50% of prospects. Now, that's got to be an A. Go 20% over sales quota. Another A. Now, B is for items of medium value. How about improve relations with the boss? That's got to be a strong B. C is for items of low value. Now, I don't think they're going to give you a new car, do you? All right, so let's call that a C. Now what you got to do is select the very best A. You're going to call it A1. Go 20% over sales quota. And then you find your A2 and so on. Now, once you've done that, you've got to make another list because you can't do a goal. So for your A1, go 20% over sales quota or whatever your goal is. List the activities that will help you achieve that goal. And whenever you make a list of either activities or goals, set priorities. Make sure you pinpoint the really important elements of your job or your life. Idea number 1. List your goals, set priorities. A simple but powerful idea. If you do this regularly, you've taken a giant step toward getting control of your time. You're now ready to run your job and your life instead of letting them run you. You've got a plan, but a plan, like any tool, is valuable only if it's used, and used every day, which means we're ready for idea number 2. Make a daily to-do list. Alan Lakeins writes that a daily to-do list is a common denominator of most successful people. They've set their goals, they've set their priorities. Now they make a daily to-do list to be certain they're moving steadily toward those goals, not just filling hours. Like this bank manager, you should remake or update that list daily, routinely, at the same time every day. The best time to do this is in the morning, or just before you go home. But again, every day, and at the same time every day. And don't make the mistake our friend here is making. Have one list instead of lots of loose scraps of paper. It's too confusing, and it can be very time-consuming. Always keep your to-do list in sight while you're working, preferably in its own special place or in its own special book. And don't forget to take it with you when you leave the office. You'll have it handy to jot down new appointments or commitments. Any kind of list will do. Any style, any size. Printed form, your own form. Just so it works for you. And it will work for you, whatever you do. But a list is not enough. Again, you must set priorities for that list by the ABC system. Repeat, unless you set priorities, your to-do list won't really help you with your time problems. Color code the list if you like, but don't get too organized. The idea is to do the things you really want and need to do, not to spend all your time making lists. Beware of becoming a time nut like this fellow. that overly organized person who can't make a move that isn't scheduled. He's so busy being well organized and organizing other people, he's often blind to change or new opportunities or needs of others. But don't be too casual and try to keep your list in your head.
11 o'clock. I know I'm supposed to do something at 11 o'clock.
Mental lists are rarely successful. Stick with written lists. But remember, it's not crossing out items on that list that's important. It's making better use of your time. And before you even consider doing anything yourself, see what task you can delegate or talk someone else into doing. Use your to-do list when you schedule your time. That'll prevent you from filling up your time with low-priority appointments and tasks. And don't fill up every minute of the day with projects or appointments.
Would you like me to send in your 2 o'clock appointment or your 3 o'clock appointment?
Oh,
You're bound to get behind if you do,
let me, why don't we,
and go home feeling frustrated and guilty.
why don't you, pick one?
Give up waiting time forever. View being kept waiting as a gift of time. Do something on your to-do list. Read an article you've been wanting to read. Study those sales figures. Read a book on time management. You say you have no time to learn French? Why not listen to tapes while getting ready for work? Or take that self-improvement course while commuting. Make inroads on your to-do list every chance you get. But whatever you do, don't do what our friend here is doing. Start with A's, not with C's.
Time out. Hold it right there.
What's your trouble, friend?
Start with A's, not with C's. Sometimes that's not possible or practical.
Now, it's always possible and generally practical.
Prove it. Now, look. It was 10 minutes to 12. I have a lunch date. I can't do any of my A's in 10 minutes. So I got rid of a C.
Looks like you got rid of a lot of C's today.
I had a lot of 10 minutes between interruptions.
Look, you're not alone. Most people do too many C's. They're easy, they're fast, they make you feel you're really accomplishing something.
Yeah, but it's Monday. A tough day for appointments. I get my juices going for the week by getting a lot of the junk out of the way.
Monday's a junk day, huh?
I've always said Mondays are a tough way to spend 1/7 of your life.
You could say it another way. When you waste Mondays, you waste 1/7 of your life. You can't justify clearing your desk of C's by saying you're getting them out of the way so you'll be free for your A1 later. Sometimes later never comes. That's why Lakeins says start with A's, not with C's.
Look, I care about my job, and I think I'm pretty motivated, but it's tough to find enough time to do all my A's.
Don't kid yourself. It's because you're doing all those C's. You simply don't have any time for A's. Resorting to desk neatening and turning out gobs of trivia might provide temporary satisfaction, but it's a mirage. You're not getting jobs done that are important to you.
C's can't be all bad. I've got so many of them.
80% of everything in the world is a C. But it doesn't follow you should be spending 80% of your time on them. Just the opposite. Concentrate on the 20% that are of high value to you. 80% of sales come from 20% of your customers. 80% of production is in 20% of your company's product line. And 80% of your telephone calls come from 20% of your callers.
You know my wife?
I know it's important not to get bogged down in low-value activities. Focus your time on the 20% where the real action is. Take a salesman. Most salesmen could benefit substantially by weeding out 20% of their customers in terms of present and potential value.
You know my wife and my customers. Look, you can never tell about a customer's potential. They're all important.
Of course they are. But 80% of the potential is still only 20% of the prospects. So don't keep low-value customers just because they're safe and sure and friendly and time-consuming. You need that time. Take the risk you must take to succeed, whether you're a manager, a trainee, salesman, or an actor. Spend your time working on A projects, A accounts, A jobs, A roles. Go through your contact files and pending files at least once a month. Throw away at least one low-dollar prospect or customer or project. And remember, maybe last year's A may now be a C. Upgrade and downgrade constantly. Don't spend your precious time through habit. Rather than thinking, I have to do this C, get in the habit of thinking, maybe I don't have to do this C. Which brings us to idea number 4. Lakeins' question, what's the best use of my time right now?
What is the best use of my time right now? Golf.
If you answer seriously and golf is the answer, it may very well be the best use of your time. But you can't play many holes in that 10 minutes you had before lunch. Lakeins' question is simply a tool. You should use it quickly and spontaneously as many times a day as you need it. It helps you make the minute-to-minute decisions you have to make. It's particularly useful to get you back on track after interruptions.
You're saying that doing my C wasn't the best use of my time?
You're the one who labeled it a C, not me. Why waste time on it if you have an A to do? Even 10 minutes of thinking quietly about that A has to be more useful. Ask yourself the question, what will happen if I don't do this C? And if the answer is nothing, don't do it.
But sometimes my C is my boss's A.
Then the answer obviously isn't nothing. Sometimes your boss's request, however, dies a natural death, and give it an aging period. If it doesn't die, do it. Don't pout over it. After all, the boss is the boss. And you can make this kind of a C more palatable by thinking of it in the larger context. Put it in a larger frame. Take a government employee, for example, and that's a good one. Some high official may make a ridiculous and time-consuming request, but if you're going to stir up a lot of flack by not doing it, do it. Get it out of the way. Don't waste a lot of valuable time complaining about it. But don't do C's that don't have this crisis potential.
Everything is a crisis at our office.
Tasks like bills rarely go from the bottom of the C pile to crisis proportions without some warning. Now, your managers or customers' follow-up request should tip you off. Lakein puts it this way. If they never ask about it, it's a C. If they write a follow-up note, it's a B. If they phone, it's an A. And if they come in person, brother, it is a crisis. Do you have a C drawer?
A C drawer? No.
Let's get you one. Now, suppose you're starting your day. Now, every morning when you sort your mail, make an A stack, a B stack, and a C stack. All right, now, resort your B's, decide whether they're A's or C's. Then take your A stack and put it in a handy spot, an A spot. All right, now take your C's, put them in a C drawer. That one down there is fine. Out of sight.
Forget them?
Forget them. If you have a request for a follow-up, you'll know where they are.
What happens when the drawer is full?
Then you move to another drawer, preferably more remote. After a few months, you throw them away.
I could learn to enjoy that kind of paperwork.
You'll know the operation is a success if you have to borrow someone else's trash can to get rid of your trash. Oh, whatever you do, remember the most important rule of all about paper and our idea number 5. After sorting, handle each piece of paper only once. Here's a man who doesn't know the meaning of that rule. Handle each piece of paper only once. Oh, yes, he's a little exaggerated, but not all that much. He is on every mailing list, subscribes to every possible newspaper and trade publication, a true victim of information overload. Every morning, he stacks and restacks his paper and mail. When he goes home or on a trip, he stuffs them all into an attaché case. When he comes back, he stacks and restacks them again. He's a paper shuffler. Have you been a paper shuffler lately? If that man lived by this rule, how much more productive and calm his life would be. He'd be on top of paperwork instead of surrounded by it. We suggest you live by that rule, too. Control your paperwork instead of letting it control you. Don't pick up a piece of paper unless you intend to do something with it. Don't put it down until you've done something with it. If you really can't take care of it immediately, at least do something to move it ahead. A complaint doesn't go away simply because you hide it for a few days. Dictate a reply immediately. Try to say it in 2 paragraphs. Don't be a perfectionist. Dictate key ideas only. Let your secretary construct the letter. Write answers on incoming mail when you can. Or use interoffice memos with the bottom portion provided for reply. Or use self-sticking notepads for your comments rather than writing a memo. All are great time savers. If you have an assistant, have a talk with him or her on how to cut down paperwork. If you don't have one, have a talk with yourself. Our bet is you can throw out 20% of your paperwork and never miss it. At least another 20% of that paperwork is C drawer material. Throw out junk mail. If you really want to read it, accumulate a whole week's worth before you review it. Have a separate pile for background reading. Read it only when time permits. Read smarter, not faster. And read books like you read newspapers. Only read the chapter if the headline really interests you. Have mail routed directly to subordinates or others when appropriate. Get off mailing lists. Cancel subscriptions that are useless. Quit organizations that send you too much mail. Pick up the telephone and resolve a question right away. Decide anything you can right away.
Okay, let's do it.
Which leads to a very crucial Lakein rule. Do it now. You know, procrastination could be the subject of an entire book or film. It's a universal problem for all of us. For now, let's just say this about our idea number 6. Do it now. Consider the real price of delay when you put something off. The problem often escalates, gives you unnecessary moments of anguish. You feel guilty, your anxiety increases every time you think about it. You don't sleep well. Is procrastination really worth the pain? Huh? You say you work well under pressure. Well, what if you leave just 2 days to do a big project and then get the flu? It's a lousy excuse if you've had 6 months to do the job. And working overtime on a crash program leads to physical and mental fatigue. Hours may be lost solving a problem that a clear mind could solve in seconds. You waste precious time hating yourself, swearing you'll never put off again. It just makes more sense to give yourself a little more lead time before the deadline. You'll be more relaxed and better control of your time and your life.
I'm back. Do it now, you say. Now, what if you ask yourself Lakeins' question, what is the best use of my time right now? And you answer, do an A1. Then you have to ask yourself another question. Do I have 45 hours to spare today?
You're talking about what Lakein calls an overwhelming A. The reason most people put off things that are really important to them is they seem overwhelming. They haven't enough time to tackle the big job, or they're too tired.
Or you're interrupted all the time.
That's right. Well, in that case, try the Swiss cheese technique. Now, look at your overwhelming problem. Analyze it. Then, poke some holes in it. Now, Lakein calls these holes instant tasks, something that might require just 5 minutes of your time, but that pokes a hole in your overwhelming task.
That's where the Swiss cheese comes in.
That's right. Now, you could have used that 10 minutes before lunch to work on your A1 instead of doing that C. For instance, suppose you're tackling a budget problem. An instant task could be to get a copy of last year's budget, or deciding who you need to contact, or obtaining the files you need, or arranging a meeting to discuss the budget. Just do something, anything, that moves along that A1.
Take lots of little bites.
Exactly. And you probably find out the job isn't quite as difficult or as overwhelming as you thought at first, and you'll suddenly have a little momentum and then block out some of the big chunks of time and finish it. Start now.
Well, what if my manager or a customer wants to see me in my big chunk, or telephones?
Well, sometimes, of course, you have no choice. You'll know when that is. But don't always do other people's A's at the expense of your own. Learn to say no. Logically look for compromises. Encourage demanding customers to go directly to the service department. Tell them their requests will be handled with greater speed there. But if you are interrupted, don't let it throw you. When that phone rings, instead of getting angry because someone's taking you from your A1, say, that's my job calling. Now, with that kind of attitude, you'll be able to pick up your train of thought right where you left off.
Well, so long.
Time for that lunch date?
No, the meter's running at an overwhelming A.
Do we expect our friend or you to remember everything we've talked about? Certainly not. We'll settle for far less. We want you to be more aware of your time and how you use it. Time is your most valuable resource. Treat it that way. And we want you to remember these 6 simple but powerful ideas. List goals. Set priorities. That's the big one. List your goals. Set your priorities. Have a daily to-do list. Start with A's, not with C's. And ask Lakeins' question often. What is the best use of my time right now? Handle each piece of paper only once. And finally, do it now. They can all be summed up. Work smarter, not harder. What's in it for you if you really work at following these suggestions? Well, you'll find yourself working less hard, doing more, ultimately earning more, enjoying yourself more, being less uptight. You'll be able to cope with the time robbers of your life. You'll find you really do have more time for your family, time to relax, time to do all those things you've always wanted to do, time to live. So we're back where we started. What is time? Time is life. Live your life. Don't just spend it. This is no open sesame, but it does work if you work at it. The alternatives? I'm sorry. You no longer have time for those alternatives. If you waste an hour, a day, a year, you're wasting your life. If you're spending your time complaining about what might have been, what should have been, you're wasting your life. If you're spending your time blaming others, goofing off, putting off, saying it's too late for you, you're wasting your life. Don't do it. Live. Remember, we each have 168 hours to live in a week, 24 hours a day, no matter how old we are. Live each one of those hours. Get control of your time and your life. So what's the best use of your time right now?